Yes, and a bro fist to you all as we have concluded Robocop. Oh my god. Clocking in at 17 hours according to Steam, with a few breaks in between. But god damn, man, what a finale. What a finale. Unbelievable. Just laughing all the way till the end. Really was. Laughing all the way to the end. I have some gripes, though. It's not a perfect game. Hell no. Let's get the gripes out of the way first. I think that's the things that would, like, turn you off if you were still on the fence about whether you wanted to try Robocop out. First of all, it is definitely cheeky with how it manages its New Game Plus options. So all the way through the beginning, if you remember video 1, there was lots of safes and things around that required certain levels of talent tree progression to unlock, right? And the big one with the safes was you needed level 6 engineering to be able to crack the safes if there was no code around. Now, there may be codes somewhere, but I did look around. I did do a sweep to see if I could find codes. Sometimes we did, sometimes we didn't, but I probably left 3 or 4 safes lying around. So I was like, man, we really need to get level 6 engineering because it's annoying me that we're just leaving these safes around. And sometimes they are clues which expand upon the cases and will give you different outcomes. In fact, I think secretly buried in Robocop is way more outcomes and endings with, not big ones by any means. I'm not talking about a completely different, like, avenue of storyline, but there are a few things where you have to make choices, and at the end of the game, when it kind of montages how everybody's doing, it's definitely affected by what you did during the game, in a big, big way. And so at some point I was like, this is just frustrating. And it's also got that problem, which many of you will be familiar with. And game devs, when they do this, it just shows that they're kind of lacking in the creativity department of having a talent tree. They have one for kind of the sake of it and to give some power progression, which could just be done through items. And in particular in Robocop, it could be done via the PCB boards that you collect throughout the game, which modify your weapons. They could put perks and talents into that instead, because it has, at the end of one of the trees, 30% more experience gained. And any single player game in my mind that has a talent, especially that's relatively deep into a tree, that gives you bonus experience is a mistake. A big mistake. Never do this, because ultimately it's going to be a tree that somebody doesn't want, and that was true of me. But you know, because we've played games before, that if you get that perk pretty early, that you're going to pay off big time later and end up spending, I think in this case, it's like 10 talents in order to get that bonus of things you don't want, and that's not fun. That is never fun, but that does have it here. Either way, we got to the point to get these 6 talent points. As I spec'd into that, there's never a single chest or safe after that point. There's 0 throughout the remainder of the game. Like, so rude. Because it clearly is designed with New Game Plus in mind, where you'll start with all your talents already unlocked, and then you can get those saves. Because you cannot get, as far as I know, there is no way of getting the level 6 engineering by the very first map. There's just no way you can get that much experience. And that was frustrating, to say the least. It's just another waste of talents. So that kind of stuff was a gripe. Boss fights, we talked about the Ed 209 fight yesterday. The final boss fight, which is against Kane, the Kane robots. They actually refer to it as Robocop 2. It is from the movie Robocop 2. Had a different effect. The Ed 209 fights had ludicrous amounts of HP. And you had one weak spot, which made it very hard to fight. And of course, throughout the remainder of the game, you end up fighting multiple Ed 209s. But every time, what had happened is we got too powerful. Legitimately, we got too powerful. Once you can mess around with the PCBs and upgrade your weapons properly, if you understand the system, and you can use... I didn't even use the top level board. I didn't have enough gems to put in it, essentially. These, like, little bonus slots. Is you just end up with a gun that is basically a mega cannon. Like, your base gun. It's kind of got that Dead Space problem, where the first gun, I forget what it's called in Dead Space, is just universally the best gun in the game. Like, as far as I'm concerned, with the way that game works. And it kind of has the problem here, is that gun is just infinitely better than what you'll find elsewhere, besides the Cobra Cannon, which is from the movie, the mega guns that they distribute to the thugs to bring down Robocop. You do get that towards the end, very briefly. That one's more powerful, and there's rocket launchers and things, but ultimately, your main gun is just so good. It's so, so good. So, the last boss, I melted. Like, I was doing so much damage to it that it was stun locked. It couldn't move, and it just went... It, like, started... I blasted it because I didn't know what I was doing. And by this point, I picked up slow motion. I had picked up electronic shockwave. I had picked up a shield. I had picked up so many perks, and I just blasted it, and his health went brrrr, and then it like played a cutscene. And it's really funny because in the cutscene, it's supposed to be a big epic battle, and it shows Robocop very similar to Robocop's 1's ending or 2's ending. Is like blasted up, there's big bullet holes in his chest. I've never been hit in my life. And you're like destroying the main OCP headquarters. You're like falling through all the floors down to the parking garage. This phase 2 just melted that. It's stun locked again. And I got another cutscene and like everything's collapsing. And then phase 3, you kill it. And it's like this. Like the cutscene playing out is really epic. Yet you've taken 0 damage. You have full health and full heals left. But in the cutscene, he's like crawling out. He's like, I'm devastated. I'm Robocop. So the boss fight's not great, but that's kind of it. That really is kind of it. Like, those are my gripes. The good stuff. The good stuff. The good stuff is literally everything else. Like, especially the dialogue that I've talked about. So the story that's happening here, for those of you who aren't going to play it, let me break it down for you, is that there's a lot of upheaval in Detroit because OCP, the big corporation, wants to build Delta City. And this is definitely leading into Robocop 3, if you've ever seen the movie, which was about OCP building Delta City and ousting all the pores in order to make room for Delta City, and they send the military in order to kick everybody out, and they rise up as a rebellion of the poverty-stricken class to fight back against OCP, and they get Robocop on their side. So it's leading into that. So this is between 2 and 3. It's preparing for that. And so you've got a reporter who you have to kind of bend the rules a little bit with. You don't have to. You can decide what you want to do. You can just like completely shut her down. But she's like, they're doing something to the impoverished. They're doing something to the poor. We need to get this message out to the people because OCP is super evil. We need to work on this. So you kind of have to bend your moral code a little bit of the law in order to help her out, to expose what OCP is doing. At the same time, there's a run for the mayor of Detroit. And you have 2 choices. Both of them suck, at least in my mind. They're both slimy, narcissistic go-getters. One of them is in support of OCP and is trying to get you rights for robots. So you have to, so you've got that going for you. It's like he wants to designate you as human so that you will have rights and things like that. But he is firmly on the side of building Delta City, which we know is going to be bad. On the other side of it, you've got a guy who's shouting out to support old Detroit and not Delta City. However, he's clearly just in it for himself and will say and do anything to maintain power. He's an absolute slimeball, and he just offers you bribes and all sorts of things to just support him because the people want to know where Robocop stands. And you have to make a choice. And throughout the game, I didn't like any of them. So I was choosing the dialogue options where I was like, I think they both suck, hoping Robocop would be like, these are both terrible people. And what you'll have is different support levels happening between each one and which one will become mayor. And you have to sort of, it wants you to make a choice. And if you don't make a choice, it'll kind of go to the people to make a choice without your influence. So that was interesting because it played out that the OCP guy won in mine. But it had a really great twist where the OCP guy was using you as Robocop to get these human rights by getting you to say things so that they could do fake news on it and take your quotes out of context that you were supporting OCP and Delta City and all that, and that OCP is good for rights and all this kind of stuff and is trying to provide you with these things. He like completely tries to manipulate you to get that stuff. The other side of it is that the gangs have been recruited. Like, this is the main through story. The gangs are working for Wendell. He's called Wendell. Wendell, who's the brother from the guy from Robocop 1. And he is on OCP's payroll. So it's very similar to the movies, all this kind of stuff where the chief mobster is actually working for OCP. And his job essentially has been to ruin the streets of Detroit in order to lower its property values and get people out and make it so people don't care about them. And you find all these agendas around about, like, try and make it as disgusting and horrible as possible and as crime-ridden as possible. So that's why he's working with all the local gangs in order to make the streets unsafe. And therefore, it won't be as much of a problem to demolish and get rid of all these people. And ultimately, you've got all these threads coming together towards the end. The culmination of all this, while you do a lot of side stories, which are really fun, especially on the political stuff, there's a great scene where one of the campaign manager of the OCP guy has been choked to death in his car, And you have to figure out that, well, he's got a mistress on the side. He's also sleeping with this completely over-the-top woman who's got chains and whips in her bedroom, who works for the other side. But he's got to deal with his secretary. It's actually his secretary who's doing it because she wanted to prove that she was so dedicated. She would do anything for him, including kill him. She's like completely off the rails. While you're dealing with this story and that. These side stories are just glorious. They're so fun. There's so many of them are going to go into. I will say it did dip towards the end in terms of how many you get. I did miss one, I think, which was an attack on City Hall. But then that's okay. That's, again, New Game Plus. You know it's there. It tells you at the end of it. It's like, okay, there is this thing that's happening later. And there's also some moral choices you make which have kind of devastating outcomes when you meet people and you're like, who's right or wrong here? Who's lying? And you try and make the right choice. And, it doesn't end so well. But ultimately, like, that is the game. That is the strength of the game, is these interactions of Robocop being this machine, half man. I actually changed my roleplay style because it got very into memories of Alex Murphy. Alex Murphy's still trying to break through this Robocop persona, machine code, whatever you want to say. And I decided to play along with that. I was like, it's clearly a focus of the game. So during my therapy sessions that you have to go to, I started to change from the machine law-abiding justice to like, okay, let's say that Alex is breaking through. And now you consider yourself human. You consider yourself Alex Murphy. You don't consider yourself to be Robocop 100% anymore. You are Robocop, but you're actually Officer Murphy. And play along with that, which worked out really well because it made a lot more sense as to what the hell was happening in the game. So I loved that kind of stuff. Really fun. Overall, I give this a high B. I know you might be expecting a higher rank for this one, but it has flaws. It's not perfect, and if you're not into this 80s, obviously it suits me down to the ground. I grew up with Robocop. It was the movie that me and my brother and his son watched religiously. I remember being excited for Robocop 3 coming out. I remember being terrified at Robocop 2. Like those movies and that dialogue, especially those 80s action movies that I just absolutely adore. I love them so much because they're so cheesy. They're so over the top. It's amazing what they got away with there. And the amount of times during this that they were like, how is this going on? And people were like, it's the 80s. You know, people smoking in hospitals, all this kind of stuff going on. I had a blast with this game. Would I pay full price for it? I actually don't know how much it is right now. Let me just check Steam. It's on Game Pass. I think this will affect my ranking. Like, how expensive is it for what it is? Okay, it's 45 quid on Steam. It's not that. Sorry. Yeah, it's 45 quid. I mean, it's like very, very positive reviews. People really like it. I don't think it's the value for money there. It is 17 hours, which is pretty good, and it's got a good New Game Plus. If you're really into it, I think that's fine, but I think you would probably be better getting a month of Game Pass and playing it on there. And having access to a bunch of other games as well. That would be where I would land with it, which is a bit of a shame. If it was like 20 quid, I think it would hold up against a lot of other games that are out in a similar price bracket, which is what it's got to be compared to, right? It's got to be compared to what else you could get for 45 quid. And considering like No Man's Sky is 49, No Man's Sky is an endless game with so much going on. Or I'm just looking at my Steam front page here. Stardew Valley is 11 quid. Absolutely ridiculous. You know, like Final Fantasy VIII is 4 quid. And you're going to get way more time and way more a deeper game out of that, which is a real shame. I think they should probably lower the price, especially with the DLC coming. So maybe watch out for that if you don't have Game Pass. But I mean, Game Pass is really good value for money, so got to be worth a consideration. So Robocop. Next up, we're going to be playing a little bit of WoW. I've been really excited after no shock to many of you. I was not happy. I was not really into playing World of Warcraft after the Race to World First. I was very disappointed in how the Undermine played out from a tuning perspective. Nothing to do with the guilds, but from what was presented. So I really was like, ugh, I just don't want to look at WoW for any period of time. I'm over that now. I've been looking forward to playing a little bit of WoW and catching up. We haven't played since the Ansarek raid. So I've got plenty to look into and have some fun with. I haven't been to the Undermine itself yet. I haven't driven the cars or anything along those lines. So I'm going to go try that out for a couple of days before I go to the US. I will be in the US this weekend, and I'll be back on Wednesday for live streams. All right? So love you guys. I'll see you soon. Bye.